Blaming JobKeeper for your problems. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian here, and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. Grab your stein of coffee because I want to have a look at this article from the ABC. Now, it's from the ABC, so it's going to have a particular perspective and bias, but I think there are some valuable lessons we can take away from this. So, JobSeeker has kept recipients below the poverty line for years, but advocates say they've never been worse off. Now, I will let you know my own opinion on JobSeeker. It's not income protection insurance. It's not universal basic income. It is an emergency temporary payment to people that are doing it tough between jobs and opportunities and, well, don't have enough of their own emergency funds to make it through. That's what I see it JobKeeper is. And if you look at how they treat you on JobKeeper and how many hoops you need to jump through and how little savings you can have, that makes sense. I think some people have this perception that JobKeeper should be something akin to a universal basic income, but it isn't. So let's have a look at this article because there's some real concerning things coming through here with regards to just people below the poverty line and the impact that can have on their health. But you need to have a bit of personal responsibility too. Make the best of your situation. So Australia is in the grips of a ballooning cost of living crisis, and Lee is literally paying for it with his health. There's nothing wrong there. We are certainly in a cost of living crisis. The 39-year-old Adelaide resident has type 2 diabetes and was diagnosed in 2019 while on placement for aged care qualifications. Okay. 39. He is not that old. He's only a couple of years younger than me, this guy, and he's already got type 2 diabetes. He's now on the $334 per week JobSeeker payment, widely considered to be below the poverty line, and is struggling to keep up with rapidly rising prices. The jump in food prices means Lee can't afford to buy healthy food, and that's not good for his condition. Because I can only afford the cheaper foods and processed stuff, it's really bad for my diabetes, he said. My blood glucose levels spikes immediately. It's just making my numbers go up. Numbers going up are not good. Okay, now, here's the thing. From my own personal lived experience, the family member that introduced the whole family to keto diets, and we went down the whole carnivore path, and we really worked to clean up our diet. Because when we were budgeting, Rachel was buying a whole lot of carb-loaded stuff because it was cheap. She got our monthly food budget with bulk buying down to like $450 a month. It was nuts. And of course, it is much more expensive now because we're a bigger family and we're eating differently. So that is true. The cheaper food is worse for you. Now, this family member of mine, he was also on JobKeeper. And, well, he could afford to go on the keto diet. And it actually removed his need for medication to treat his type 2 diabetes. He was using food to control it, which is kind of what you should be doing and what people did do in the past. And, that got me interested. Anything that you can do to get away from having to take a medication, that should be what is taught as standard. And the dietary guidelines and health advice is slowly catching up to these approaches, but it's a lot more work and effort than just writing someone a script and handing them a pamphlet. So this poor guy here in the article, he can go on a ketovore diet, reduce his carbohydrates, manage his blood glucose that way, and reduce the number of meals he had. That's how my family member helped their budget go a bit further. They're eating a lot of butter, a lot of animal products, and going OMAD. If I continue the way I am, it's going to become unmanageable. So pre-COVID, Lee said he was spending $100 to $120 a fortnight on food. Now I'm spending around $180, he said. Well, mate, you can go without meals. You can skip meals. I know it's harder when you're in this situation. You've got to really manage your diet. you've got to look at what foodstuffs are spiking your glucose and avoid them. He needs to find a doctor that can help him manage it without using, will help him actually manage his health conditions with diet rather than just going down the normal path. Lee said being on JobSeeker, while the cost of living surged, has been detrimental to his health. Because the type of food I'm able to afford, I believe it's having a direct impact on exacerbating my diabetes, he said. And it's not only him. You're going to have other people who are buying crappier food. Because all this guy's got, okay, this is all of us could be in his exact same situation. If you just keep eating the standard diet, your blood glucose keeps spiking the longer you get into life, and it's just bad luck. Some people, they hit it faster than others. Well, the number of Australians that are probably pre-diabetic and don't even realize it. Lee isn't the only Australian on income support who's been struggling in poverty. And it isn't just healthy food they're going without. The problem is what they consider healthy food. All the stuff that is really just carbohydrates and will just spike your glucose. Survey results released last month by the Australian Council of Social Service showed a majority of respondents have been skipping meals, medication, and taking fewer hot showers due to the skyrocketing cost of living. Well, there's nothing wrong with skipping meals. There's nothing wrong with taking cold showers. I mean, skipping medication, hopefully that's because you don't need to take it and you've managed to wean yourself off it. That's another way to save money, but you don't want to be just doing, I don't know why you would be, since it's so subsidized in this country, the medication, it's kind of nuts. But the other two, skipping meals and fewer hot showers, that's not a big deal. Is that a big deal now? Not having a hot shower. Have we really become such a soft country that not having a hot shower is a big deal? I mean, who wrote this? Who wrote this article? Evan, come on. And Norman. So blokes, come on, lads, toughen up a bit. Bloody hell, not having a hot shower. Oh, boy. I mean, we went for quite some time without hot water because we couldn't afford to repair the hot water system. And you just make do. Particularly with the kids, you just do it the old-fashioned way. You heat the water on the stove. So way below the poverty lines. Social services advocates have been calling for a more substantial increase to JobSeeker for years. While the rate of JobSeeker was technically increased last month, it wasn't an increase in real terms. Most Social Security payments are adjusted automatically twice a year to account for inflation, under a process called indexation. Last month's indexation bumped JobSeeker for someone who is single and over 22 by up to 4%, according to government figures. But according to the Australian Bureau of Statistics inflation measure, the CPI, prices are 6.1%. Because the indexation doesn't match the cost of living increase, the purchasing power of JobSeeker recipients decline. Now, can someone explain to me why CPI, if that's the figure that the government's putting out there, isn't used for this indexation? Shouldn't they be just auto-linked? Okay, why isn't it? Why are they two separate things? It doesn't make sense. Well, no, we know why, because the government wants to have fine control over it. Maybe they can buy votes, or maybe back in the day, it's so they could say, oh, we're increasing the Centrelink by above inflation. They should just hardwire it together. Some experts argue the cost of living crisis and inflation is actually hitting those on lower incomes harder than those on higher income. Is that an argument? I wouldn't say. I'd say that's a well-known and measured fact that I'm sure we could find historical precedent backing that up. That's not a big stretch at all. Why do you think you've got all the inner city idiots voting green and wanting to intervene in our energy economy to make cost of living more expensive for everyone? Because they can afford it. They can afford it. They don't care. CPI tracks increases in a basket of goods and weighs them all equally. But it doesn't account for the fact that low-income households spend a greater percentage of income on essentials, such as food and housing, expenses that are now rising the fastest. Eliza Klein, an associate professor at the ANU, Crawford's School of Public Policy, said it would be better for recipients if JobSeeker was indexed to wages rather than CPI. But it's not even matching CPI. But then if it was indexed to wages, it wouldn't move at all. Or maybe we just get rid of JobSeeker entirely, and you just forced to, what other countries do, forced to pay into private income protection insurance. I can't see that happening. That'd be a disaster too. Or maybe you only get back what you pay in. But not more than that, Ms. Klein said, it just needs to increase in real terms. JobSeeker is extremely low compared to the various poverty lines circulating, she said. The Henderson poverty line, one of the most commonly used metrics, had the poverty line as of June 2022 for a single adult at $616 per week. The base JobSeeker rate for a single adult with no children is currently $334. Other payments such as disability support pension, $468 for a single adult, and youth allowance, $265 for a single adult living away from home, also remain below the Henderson poverty line. People's payments are way below the poverty line that we have here in Australia. The only real term increase JobSeeker's ever seen since the mid-90s was the $3.57 per day lift in 2021. It was temporarily increased to $5.50 per week by the coronavirus supplement at the onset of the COVID lockdowns in 2020, before reverting back to its original level the following year. I mean, he doesn't have to pay for any of his reading equipment. Well, now the strips, don't they get them subsidized or much cheaper? I know I have to pay for them when I'm measuring my glucose and ketone levels. As I should. It's a health thing. But I mean, here's the argument. Because the Centrelink is so low, it's forcing people to make bad dietary decisions. And that will have long-term health impacts on these people, and that will increase the demand for government-funded resources in the health sector that they use. So would it be smarter to increase the Centrelink now and attempt to avoid that cost? It makes sense. You'd hope it would work. But the problem is that means that you'll just be following the standard dietary guidelines, and won't really make much difference, to be honest. But then again, having a bit extra money may give someone the confidence to go down maybe a low-carb path or investigate things. On the day ABC visited Lee, he returned a blood glucose score of 16. Whoa. That's insane. Which he said was very high. I'd really like to get it under 10. This is Australia. He should be measuring it the same way we are. Whoa. He said when he buys better quality food, which means he returns better blood glucose scores. When I was on the coronavirus supplement, I was able to get under 5 some days, he said. Well, you got to manage your... Oh, damn. Well, this is exactly what's happening. And it's not just to him. It's to all of us who are cutting costs. This is, as a family, we have made the decision to prioritize food over other things. So to ensure that... I don't want to get Alzheimer's when I get older, guys. The worst I've ever seen. Pas Forginoin, a coordinator at Anti-Poverty Network SA, has spent over a decade in the advocacy space. He said, JobSeeker recipients are struggling now more than ever. I've never come across more people on JobSeeker who are in crisis, who are a couple of bad weeks away from being in crisis, he said. This is absolutely the worst that I've ever seen. Next week's federal budget comes after weeks of political debate focused on whether to maintain legislated tax cuts for Australians on some of the highest incomes. Those stage 3 tax cuts, those billions of dollars that could change lives overnight for folks who find that, whatever. I mean, we've looked at, if you're earning 50 grand, you're getting a benefit from those tax cuts. Okay? It's not just the rich. And the reason the wealthier are getting a greater tax cut is because they already pay more tax. Maybe we could look at some of these superfluous government programs and services that we don't need that could be used to save money and then pay that to JobSeeker recipients. What about the Minister for Women? Let's just get rid of that entire ministry. We don't need it. The whole investigation about the wage gap, we know that's bullshit. I'd much rather that money goes to JobSeeker, people looking for JobSeeker, 100%. There you go. There's a saving. What else could we find? Oh, that stuffed up French submarine deal. There you go. How many people could that have paid? How many lives could that have improved? I mean, you've got to think about it. If we increase the access to healthy eating for the poorest of the poor, there's going to be less demand of the health services. It's kind of the opposite of all the sin taxes they put on everything. The government would release the number of promotional election material this year with the motto, "No one left behind," has ruled out any further increases to Social Security payments. Oh, well, guys, there you go. I mean, what do you expect? What do you expect? Labor, Liberal? Come on. Now you're just going to get it with all the woke shit. That's it. You're going to get screwed over with woke shit as opposed to getting screwed over without woke shit. There you go. That's what you voted for. And the bureaucrats will be happy. He said raising JobSeeker should be more of a priority. We've been told the government that it's not going to happen this year, and that's going to mean people are going to continue skipping meals and fresh fruit and veggies. You don't need fruit and veggies. Okay, I know that's a controversial take. Go to low carb down under. You know, skip the fruit and veg, because how often they take more prep work. Just buy cheap mince with high fat and supplement with butter and salt. You'll be surprised how satiating that can be. Animal per calorie, it's really satiating. You know, and you'll make do without your carrot. Social Services Minister, just don't buy anything packaged. Any of the big food crap, don't buy any of that. It needs to be something you can make at home. I'm going off topic again. But everyone is doing keto or carnivore. You can back me up in the comments. You've seen the change in your quality of life simply by your diet. That's what makes this even so sad. Social Services Minister Amanda Rishworth said next week's budget was about difficult decisions in difficult times that would include responsible cost of living relief with an economic dividend. We always have to provide as much support as is financially responsible for people who are doing it tough. And we recognise that people on JobSeeker are doing it tough, she said in a statement. Australians understand that we didn't create these challenges, but they elected us to take responsibility for addressing them, and we are. Ms. Klein said Social Security had been unfairly weaponised and its recipients demonised by a number of governments in the last few decades. Well, I mean, that's true. People on welfare are not the huge drain on the government coffers as many people are led to believe. Okay, they're not the huge drain. I mean, we all hate the bludger, the lazy bastard taking advantage of the situation. But there's always going to be some of that. There will always be some of that if you want to have this system in place. I mean, if you advocate for minimum wages, which will limit some people's ability to even get into the workforce, then you need to ensure they're not destitute. So an increase is not so people can go on lavish holidays or anything like that. People don't even have enough for food at the moment. That's something Lee knows all too well. It makes me feel angry I can't support myself in a way that I need for my condition, he said. I think, let's have a talk about this. How much angrier would he be once he realizes that the diet he's eating his whole life, probably following all of the health guidelines, it's what led him down this path? That's kind of a black pilling thing. You can get pretty angry going that process. But I mean, I think there are a lot of things that Australians would happily sacrifice, a lot of government initiatives, government programs, bullshit, jobs that are keeping people moving, and rather see that go towards people on welfare to ensure they can actually eat healthier. What do you think? I mean, I feel sorry for these people, but you can't blame the job seeker for your bad diet. You got to find ways to do it cheap, and there are ways you can. Trust me, I know. As always, thanks for watching. Check out my other channels, HeiseBim and HeiseSays International. And if you're a fan and want to support the content I create and find here, there's a few ways you can. Financially on YouTube or Patreon, using our referral links on Amazon, eBay, Independent Reserve or AussieBroadband, calling us if you need an architect, and I'll see you all next time. Bye for now, guys, and get into that cheap 30% fat mince and big globs of butter with salt. Bloody good breakfast with some eggs too, but they're a bit expensive.